Last time, we spoke about the great differences between how the author known as Luke reports the divine calling of Paul and the way Paul himself reports this event in his own writings. The one common element in both reports of this event of Paul's call by God is that it most definitely occurred in an alternate state of consciousness, something that the historical Paul was most adept at experiencing. This is not surprising, since tradition notes that God routinely communicates with human beings in this way. For example, in the case of the calling of Samuel the prophet. The author called Luke knew how Paul had learned about what the God of Israel was doing in Jesus of Nazareth. Paul said as much in his own letters. What Luke did was to fashion a creative report that differed from Paul's, which nevertheless accords perfectly well with the patterned human experience known as ecstatic trance, one of more than 35 different states of consciousness or awareness of which human beings are capable. Indeed, Luke reports more than 20 instances of group and individual experiences of altered states of consciousness in his work, The Acts of the Apostles. He was obviously familiar with the experience and knew how to report it according to the cultural paradigm. Psychological anthropologists like Arthur Kleinman here identify 3 stages in a trance experience. In the first or mildest level of an altered state of consciousness, the visionary perceives light and geometric patterns. The shift in consciousness is then induced by intense concentration. Those who drive motor vehicles are familiar with a phenomenon known as road trance or highway hypnosis. Intense concentration on the journey and the route causes the mind to shift awareness to another level. The driver arrives safely at the destination, having observed all the laws and having followed the correct route, but doesn't recall the journey because his or her mind was thinking of something else. This applies to Paul in Luke Acts. After witnessing the murder of Stephen, Paul engaged fully in persecuting believers in Jesus Messiah. The book of Acts depicts Paul as being quite obsessed in this regard. The Lucan Paul is depicted fixated on this as he travels along the road to Damascus, even if he was only walking. There can be no doubt that the topic and person that intensely engaged Paul's mind was Jesus, whom he considered to be a fraud, and in light of his crucifixion, quite clearly was not beloved by God or approved by God. The bright light from Skyvault depicted in Acts, said to be even brighter than the sun, is a sign of a shift in Paul's consciousness. Whether this actually happened to the historical Paul, or whether Luke created this element, the fact is that Paul's level of awareness is shifting, and Paul is aware of it. The light color indicates this shift to anyone familiar with trance experiences.